And from one draconian regime, let's turn to another. Iran. It's also in the grip of unrest. Only that the protests in Iran have been on for more than 3 months now, and they're getting much bigger and definitely much more fierce when compared to China. That said, there is a sort of underlying similarity in both these protests. We've seen the visuals. For one, the manner in which they started. In both cases, the protests started and gained strength. Over the unwarranted killings of civilians, the reasons were not the economy or political decisions, but simply the way these respective regimes treated their people, the way they trampled upon their rights to enforce their will. Secondly, the protests are in a sense a grassroots movement. They started from the unlikeliest of places, from quaint towns and cities that one doesn't really expect to rise in revolt. This only demonstrates that ordinary citizens, unlike their counterparts in big cities, still have the courage to stand up against state-sponsored brutality. Coming now to the third similarity, the way both these protests in China and Iran are being handled. Remember, both China and Iran are authoritarian regimes. Likewise, their response is nothing short of ruthless. They're both trying to crush the protests with a heavy hand. Look at these numbers now. Since August this year, more than 18,000 protesters have been detained in Iran. 18,000. And how many have been killed? More than 450 according to official estimates. This figure includes 63 minors. Yes, in its quest to end the protests, the Iranian regime isn't even sparing the minors. And why talk about just minors? It's not even sparing its own kin. Look at the images on your screen now. That's Farideh Moradkhani, the latest detainee who surprisingly, more like shockingly, happens to be the niece of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. I'm not talking just numbers. I'm not making this up. Look at that tweet on your screen now. It's from her brother, Mahmoud Moradkhani. We've translated it from Farsi. He says his sister was arrested by authorities when she went to the prosecutor's office to serve a court order. So what exactly was her crime? This video. Moradkhani uploaded this recently to decry the ongoing crackdown. In this video, she called the authorities led by her uncle a murderous and child-killing regime. Those are strong words. She also called upon people across the world to tell their governments to stop supporting Iranian leaders. Watch this.
ای انسان‌های آزاده، در کنار ما باشید و ما را یاری کنید تا دولت‌ها دست از حمایت از این رژیم قاتل و کودک‌کش بردارند. این رژیم به هیچ اصلی، حتی اصول مذهبی خودش نیز وفادار نیست و جز زر و زور و حفظ قدرت قانون و قاعده‌ای به هر طریق ممکن نمی‌شناسد. حال زمان آن رسیده است که تمامی کشورهای آزادیخواه به عنوان حرکتی نمادین و سمبولیک تمامی نمایندگان خود را از ایران فرا بخوانند و نمایندگان و وابستگان این رژیم سفاک را از کشورهای خود اخراج نمایند و بدین طریق اظهار همبستگی با مردم آزادیخواه ایران بنمایند.
That's a powerful statement, especially from a member of Khamenei's own family. This begs the question, who exactly is she? Farideh Moradkhani is the daughter of Khamenei's sister, Badri Khamenei, who apparently fell out with her family in the 1980s and fled to Iraq when the two countries were at war. As for Farideh, who lives in Iran, this isn't really the first time she's been arrested. In October 2021, she was put behind bars for praising Farideh, the widow of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. He was Iran's former monarch who was ousted in the 1979 revolution. Farideh backed his wife and was arrested. A year on, she has backed these protesters and has been arrested once again. If people from Khamenei's own family are being subjected to such oppression, just think and imagine the fate of others. Others like Tumaj Saheli, the man on your screens. He's a famous Iranian rapper who recently backed these protests as well. He has now been charged with corruption and could even face a death penalty. Reports say he's been charged with muharabe. That's a crime punishable by death under Iranian Sharia law. He's being held at an undisclosed location and is being tried without a lawyer of his choice. Tehran expects such punishments would make the protesters retreat. But its confidence seems a bit misplaced because the demonstrations are only gaining more traction. Look at these images. They're from Zahedan, a city in the Sistan-Balochistan province. Even conservative women here have hit the streets in support of their comparatively younger fellow citizens. And then we have images like these. They're from the industrial hub of Isfahan. These are steel workers staging a walkout, abandoning their jobs in support of protesters. I could go on. You have these images. They're from a protest in London, organized by the Iranian diaspora living there. It was attended by a host of activists and artists. Most of them either shaved their hair or cut them off in support of women's rights in Iran. The images were moving, to say the least.
Your sister, our sister, for the women's revolution in Iran.
I shaved my hair in solidarity with the women of Iran. This is a women's revolution. They have been oppressed by the Islamic regime for decades. Their bodies are policed, their minds are policed, their choices are severely limited. And after the brutal murder of Mahsa Amini, things rightfully erupted.
I did haircut my hair for Iranian women, for my daughters, for my sisters, for my mother, and for my grandmom. For freedom, democracy, equality for all of Iranian in Iran. To show my solidarity and support with my sisters, million sisters in Iran and in the world.
Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Qatar, there was another show of support, this time from soccer fans who were celebrating Iran's decisive victory against Wales. The Iranian side beat Wales 2-0 on Friday. As the people celebrated this victory, they also used the occasion to remind the world about the cruelties that they were facing back home. Let's listen into a few voices now.
We are all here to support the Iranian regime, but we are here to scream, Zindagi Azadi, women life, freedom! Let us speak! They want to censor us even here in Qatar! Women life, freedom, that's what we are here for, fighting for our freedom!
So at the end of the day, the protests in Iran are no longer an internal matter. They've become a global movement of sorts. A movement aimed at making the lives of Iranian women more humane, more safe, and devoid of patriarchal norms. But what this movement also depicts are the limits of people's power. Yes, the protests may be gaining momentum, but have they yielded any significant results? Have they led the authorities to rethink their policies? Will Khamenei really remove the country's rigid dress code? It's been 3 months and counting. Forget listening to the protesters. The regime hasn't even acknowledged their concerns. This has been the status quo in every movement that has erupted in the country. There's no saying if this status quo will change. For all you know, these protests might just fizzle out. But that doesn't mean that the people of Iran should give up. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.